It's fall here in New York City, and I spent the whole weekend raking my hate mail. I'll be honest with you folks, right now I would give anything to be hiking on the Appalachian Trail. I got into the car this morning and the navigation lady wasn't speaking to me. Things are still pretty bad. There's a possibility that I'll be the first talk show host impeached, so...
Wow, welcome back to Harvard. That was David Letterman last night. He kicked off his monologue, as you just saw, with rapid-fire jokes about the extortion plot that's caused him to make an on-air admission of relationship with female staffers on his program. But later on, he talked about the pain he's caused his wife. No joking here.
My wife, Regina, she has been horribly hurt by my behavior. And when something happens like that, if you hurt a person, then it's your responsibility. You try to fix it. Let me tell you, folks, I got my work cut out for me.
Joining me now is the Washington Post, Paul Farhi, and the New York Times, the great Bill Carter. I must say the great Bill Carter, and start with you, sir. Out of seniority and greatness and grandeur, sir. This seems to me a great study in what late night's all about. I'm like you. We grew up with Carson. I was in love with him when I had no social life. He was my social life. He was my company. I'd make a peanut butter and crackers or cheese and crackers and a Coke, and I went in there for an hour and a half, and he was my best friend on this planet. Isn't this thing about Letterman only adding to that intimate connection between him, with all his faults, and his audience?
I think you're right. I think it's an extraordinary thing that he's doing, and really Letterman has done this more than anyone else. He's played his life out on camera, you know, from his illnesses to his baby being born to all the crazy woman who broke into his house. All these crazy events in his life, extreme events in his life, have taken place on camera because he discusses them with the audience, and in very honest and candid terms. So yes, there's a real connection built up there.
Is there a clown-like aspect to him? You'll see him there in the monologue wearing the white socks. It's almost like he's got the big floppy shoes. He portrays himself in the great classic sense of a comic as a clown. Yes, he's funny. He's a kid. Let me go to Paul here. He comes off as a kid, a big overgrown kid. He's almost my age, and yet you think of him as 18.
Well, that's what's lovable about him. He's this self-deprecating guy who the audience can relate to. He never seems to be a giant intellectual, but he's the kind of guy who puts himself down as much as he's going to put anybody else down. You can't help but love him.
So what are the danger marks here for him professionally? I see where Andrea Pizer, the columnist in the New York Post, writes she's calling for him to be fired. That seems a little extreme with the evidence we have at hand, but what do you think is the story here, Bill?
Well, obviously, unless something else comes forward, it would be sort of surprising if CBS did anything. The guy's doing really well right now in the ratings. They're very happy with his performance. I think it would have to be kind of an extraordinary series of events for that to take place, but we don't know how this is going to play out in the long term, because I don't know what the audience reaction will be long term. There's a question about women. Maybe women will be more uncomfortable with him. I think we'll see how it plays out, but in the short term, it looks like it's just drawn more attention to him and made him even more, if not popular, certainly unmissable.
Well, could he be... I don't know him. I've done this show, guys. I did it like years ago after 9/11, and he's one of these mystery men where you do the show. You've probably done him, Bill, where you show up, you never see him. He's like the masked man. You don't see him until he shows up in that chair next to you, and then you never see him afterwards, where when you do my friend Jay Leno's show, you're hanging around with him for an hour before, and he's got jeans on. You talk to him after the show. You talk to him before the show. He's always been elusive, but isn't he like the professional cad? Like, he isn't the good guy.
Well, right now he's the professional cad in a way that he doesn't want to be.
You're sure?
Well, these allegations...
See his numbers last night?
These allegations keep coming out, and we don't know how far it goes. We don't know whether the shoes are going to drop.
The age of this intern is an issue, I would think.
That is a problem. Potentially there are other women coming forward. There may be allegations of sexual harassment. We don't know. So far, nothing. And I think, frankly, he probably ends up writing it out. He controls the microphone. He
also owns Worldwide Pants, his production company. He's not an employee like all of us are. He's not a part of a big corporation with all kinds of HR rules. Here he is, by the way. In fact, I'm not sure what the governing laws of New York labor law is, so that might come into play here. Bill, is anything coming up on that New York labor law affecting him? Is he vulnerable to any charges there?
No, nothing has been raised in that way. I mean, we've talked to some of the legal experts. I think you have to really look hard at this and say, well, who are the women involved? Nobody has come forward in his past ever to make a complaint about him. There's never been a sexual harassment complaint about him.
Except that one young woman who said, I would have married him, and I love him, and he's funny, and all these joyous comments. Let's take a look at some more of his humor last night, because he managed to sustain last night. Here he is last night. Let's listen.
Okay, let's look at the news. First of all, Bill Clinton said... no. news for South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford because he... How about that Elliot Spitzer? Would you take a look at...
So he's making himself the joke, Bill Carter.
Well, that's the best way to do it. I mean, the audience is there. They're tense. They don't know what he's going to do or how he's going to address it. He comes out. He does killer humor last night. Just one joke after another. Bang, bang, bang. And they were explosively funny and all on him. He pulled all the jokes, onto himself. And I think that's the best approach.
Okay, let me ask you guys about the dirty little secret of late-night television. It's a dirty little secret. Late-night television is different than prime time. Sure. You're allowed to be a little risque. Your language can be across the line. There's something. Johnny Carson was married how many times? How many times did he and Ed McMahon, who I love, joke about him being bar rag breath and out drinking and having another disastrous experience with a woman? And that was all part of the intimacy build-up.
Yeah, well, certainly, and you can get away with a lot more than even Johnny Carson used to get away with. There's many more channels. The audience is much smaller. The standards are lower. He can do that kind of humor. The question with Letterman, though, is can he get away with making fun of these people in these sex scandals when he himself is in one himself?
Well, what do you make of that, Bill? I think he still thinks everybody's fair game.
Look,
that's my hunch.
This is his job.
Because they're funny in themselves, these people.
Of course.
I mean, how can you not see the humor in a guy who says he's hiking on the Appalachian Trail and he's in Buenos Aires with some Latina, girlfriend of his? I mean, it's just too good a story.
No, he's not going to shy away from that. He can't. He wouldn't be doing his job. You can see a little spin put on it as it goes forward every time he does it. The way Carson would joke about some, event that had to do with divorce, and he'd talk about his own divorce. I think you'll see Letterman use it as, in his own interests.
I remember the business advisor that stole all of Johnny's money. He made jokes out of that for years. That guy made fun of...
Bombastic Bushkin. Bombastic
Bushkin.
Yes.
God, we were fans, weren't we, Bill? Thank you, sir.
Yes, we were.
But nobody knows late night like this guy. Bill Carter. Maybe he's got another book coming out, this one.